Hey guys, so I'd like to bring you up to speed on what's been happening here. Very recently, as of last weekend, I pulled the 408 stroker out of my 1967 Dodge Dart. Now, the stroker had, I thought, spun a rod bearing, which essentially it did, but it actually spit the rod bearing out into the oil pan. We'll go over the stroker when it's time to start fixing that engine and put it together. But for now, we have this beautiful late 90s 360 Magnum. Same style engine block that I based my stroker off of, but this one is going to get re-ringed and re-bearinged, and then I'm going to put my cam and top end from the stroker on, and we're going to put this in the car and see how it performs. There's a minute amount of cylinder ridge. I'm going to take what feels to be the worst one out of all of them once I pull the pistons, and I'm going to use my stone hone and some honing oil and see if I can get that to clear up pretty quickly. Now, I guess I could say good practice is to make sure that you keep everything in order. Your connecting rod bearing shell, bearing cap goes with its respective connecting rod. Never a good idea to try and mix those up. You'll have bad things happen. You'll squeak a bearing, or you'll have too much clearance, or something won't line up. Normally you end up with a connecting rod that won't run the journal properly. Now, I can tell you already that I do need connecting rod bearings. I had a glimmer of hope when we pulled the stroker out of my Dart that I could potentially clean up this engine, give it a bit of rattle can paint on the outside, throw my aluminum heads and cam in it, and get her in the car. That was dashed pretty quickly when I took a look at the first connecting rod bearing. It had already been wiped down to the copper, so that tells me high mileage, and off we go. Well, thus far I'm pretty happy. Very minimal scuffing on the piston skirt. Almost none on this side at all. The pin moves freely, and the rings aren't stuck. The ring lands are pretty clean. So as long as the rest of them come out like that, then we've got a really good at-home, cheap rebuild potential here. And that would be ideal for my budget. Now, you could say that I'm sort of doing a build that I shouldn't be doing in a way. Like, why don't I concentrate the money on the stroker? Because I'm sure I'm going to find a way to improve the stroker. Yeah, nice. And when that happens, well, I want to have a better budget for it. I really do only have a couple $100 budget. And being that I work in Canadian dollars, that budget shrinks pretty quickly. So I do have a dial bore checker, dial bore gauge, and it might not be the swankiest unit, but it is accurate enough for what I'm doing. Yeah, we're looking at fairly consistent scuffing. Scuffing on the cylinders, or on the piston skirts, is to be expected. Nothing new there. Don't let a blown engine get you down. Not when you've got an old, greasy, oily one sitting there that you could do something with. And so far this crank is pretty clean. I do see a little bit of scratching from some dirt that's gotten into the bearings over the years, but pretty normal, I must say, pretty normal. I'll still have to measure it, of course, but the big thing I need to see is what do my main bearings look like. And I know I should put brand new main bearings in, but I'm rock autoing all this stuff to keep this down to a budget of not very much. And of course the main bearings come from a different supplier through Rock Auto, so if I have to order them, it's going to add another $150 to my bill, and I would really rather avoid that. So if these are usable, great. If they're not, I will order them. Wouldn't it be something if I could do this under $500 Canadian? Like that guy? I'd run him. Let's hope the rest look like that. I can tell you that the line bore feels great. Yeah, I'll have to take a closer look. But same thing, number 2 is consistent with number 1. So, aside from the rods showing copper, which showing copper is fine, it doesn't mean your engine's screwed. It just means time has been added. There, and even number 3, which in a Mopar small block is the thrust bearing. Thrust bearing looks immaculate. No, these boys look really good. Number 3 is a little bit discolored. Oh, number 3 is a little bit discolored. It's smooth, but not smooth. So I think I'm going to err on the side of caution. Number 3 on the bottom, how does it look? No, that looks really good actually. You wipe that oil off and it's clean. I'll have to think about that one. That might be the telltale for me to get a set of mains. So here are your typical at-home rebuild parts for reconditioning cylinders. You've got your ball hone and you've got your stone hone. I would use a ball hone if I couldn't feel any cylinder ridge, but I would still check for cylinder taper. I would still measure afterwards. The stone hone I would use if I had a noticeable cylinder ridge that could hurt the overall go, because when you put new piston rings in, they're not worn to that cylinder ridge, so the top of the piston ringland and the piston are going to be fighting, because that piston ring is going to be butting up against the wear on the top ringland, and you may not get it all with the stone hone, with the ball hone. So I'm going to give you a quick demonstration here. Now, in case you're wondering what I'm using for honing oil, this is a homemade mix off a recipe I got from Cummins. Cummins recommends a 30 weight engine oil, diesel engine oil, mixed 50-50 with diesel or kerosene fuel oil. So this is 10W30. I believe it's Shell Rotella T4 and just some diesel from the pump. Do not wear your favorite t-shirt when you're doing this. You will get coated. Here we go. Alright, first pass with the ball hone. Let's see how we did. Okay, you can see we've got a little bit of crosshatch happening, nothing crazy, but right here is our cylinder ridge, our upper ringland essentially. On this side it doesn't look so horrible now though. We would think okay, but boy, you might not be able to see it very well, but I can sure feel it. I can, like, wow. That's the problem with a stone or a ball hone. A ball hone will make your cylinder look real good really quickly, and it may smooth over the edges of that cylinder ridge. The problem is that ridge is still there, but it comes in the form of a tight taper. And again, with a ball hone, you're not going to correct any cylinder wall taper either. So being that this is our worn out cylinder, what we're going to do now is we're going to start with the stone hone. Oh, and check your stones. Make sure they're still all flat. These ones actually have a little bit of wear I wasn't aware of. Okay, stone hone. The big issue is when you get too far down the bottom, they can spring out. They can catch on your crankshaft main webbing or other things that you don't want them to hit. So you have to be conscious about how deep you're going. Ball hone, much more forgiving. It'll just spring around and bounce back. Here we go. One thing I have done in the past is I've gone ahead and honed the cylinders with the stone hone. Tried to fix up all the taper, everything. And then I've gone in with my ball hone to create my crosshatch pattern. Why would I do that? It's very hard to rip the exact right speed with your stone hone and not damage the stones. It's always better to finish off. Like this is for at-home job. We're not talking about plateau honing. We're not talking about using several different grit sizes. Out-of-the-box parts or tools to do the job we need them to do to get us back on the road. Alright guys, so the video kind of stops abruptly where I was honing the cylinders. Now I spent a little while. I honed number 8. As I said, it was the worst one. And I honed number 6 adjacent to it because I figured I better get a comparison going side to side. Number 6 and number 4 and number 2 are not nearly as worn as number 8 and number 1. So at that point I got my dial bore gauge in and I set it to 4-inch, which is the original bore size of the 360 and a 350 and a 351 Windsor. Anyway, it's wore out. It just is. I had a video going of showing you me measuring the bore and checking for taper. The top of the cylinder starts at 4 and 8 thousandths. 4 inches and 8 thousandths of an inch. So that's not great start, and it just gets worse from there. I was as high as 4.017, so 17 thou oversized. And even on number 6, which the wear was way more minimal, we were still 4 and 10, 4 and 12, 4 and 15. So essentially, it's a good block, but not good for what the plan was. Also, if you notice I'm wearing a different t-shirt, it's because it's a couple days later. I was editing a video and found out that my mic had died, which I didn't know. So again, another reason why I'm not videoing, showing you that I was bore gauge checking the cylinders. Sorry about that, guys. But so this engine is good for a rebuild, but not our at-home rebuild. It needs more than we can give it. Unless I want to spend a couple $100 on stones and while away about a week's worth of time trying to hone these cylinders straight and exact and to a size I can buy pistons for. Which, again, pistons are not in the budget. We've got a few $100 maximum, like maybe $300 Canadian. So that's like $18 American. It's a tight budget. Some of you might get that reference, but anyway, I'll bring you in right quick and show you the 2 bores, and then we're going to look at the only other option that we have at this time for getting this car up and running. So this was only about, I don't know, 40-50 passes with the stone hone. You can see it still hasn't even gone in to cover the cylinder ridge. This is the area where the piston ring makes the most wear before it stops moving up. This one, again, now because I use the ball hone, you can't see it, but boy, I can feel that with my finger. It's a good lump in there. That's grooved in pretty hard. This is going to be a minimum 30 thou over bore, I would say, for a safety. Here's the other side of it. I mean, she's bad. Now down in the bores, it looks okay, but there's actually a lot of cylinder taper. Same on this guy. There's cylinder taper, guys. Not what we want to do. So then you ask, okay, so we've pulled it apart, we've checked it, and we've inspected our components. The crank is good, the pistons are good, the connecting rods all appear good. I haven't plastic gauged them or done any bore measuring, but they appear good at this time. The mains look fantastic, so I'm giving this engine a great candidate for a rebuild in the future. That doesn't help us right now with trying to get our 1967 Dodge Dart back on the road. So some of you on my channel may never even have seen this car before. This is my joy, I guess, my 1967 Dodge Dart. There's a few subtle differences. Some of you would say it doesn't look like a 67, the doors are wrong. You're right, they're wrong. The dash is wrong. Oh yeah. But this is a 67. It's not a GT car, but I liked the badges. Limited edition Days of Glory Shopworks decal. But this car has been in my life for almost 20 years now, if not over 20 years. And I've been driving it for about 18. I built it from pretty much nothing, $150 rolling chassis of rust and twisted metal. So this is why I don't mind putting another engine in it yet again. Here's our engine bay. Nice little shot there. Everything's clean and tidy from when I repainted the car. Here's a little shot of the interior. Note the patented cue ball shifter and 5-speed. We'll get some closer looks when everything's all cleaned up. But so that's the ticket. This thing's always ran a small block for me. Now originally this car came with a slant 6, and it was a lovely kind of turquoisey metallic green. Not anymore. And the hood is down there beside my my van body down there, just waiting for the wind to blow it away. So a fail on that engine, a fail on my stroker. This is our kind of last kick at the can for a budget-friendly, let's get my car back on the road for a bit of summer fun. So here's our last budget-friendly kick at the can. This little gem you see before you is a 1983 360 4-barrel, factory 4-barrel engine. Doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but to some people it does. So this engine came out of an 83 Dodge W150, that's 4x4, and it was a 4-speed manual truck. And as you can tell, the great big flywheel on the back, and it's got the old Borgenbeck 3-finger style diaphragm, which something I should probably be running in my car, to be honest, for the amount of clutches I've gone through. This engine had good oil pressure. It had about 50 pounds cold, and I think it dropped down to about 30 when it was warmed up. It hits on all 8. No ticking or tapping or any kind of issues like that. So aside from the engine oil smelling a little gassy, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to put this thing in the car. Obviously, I can't put it in looking like this. Once you see the car, you can't. And I've never been a huge fan of the turquoise. I used to paint all my Mopar small blocks turquoise, but I am going to go back to red. Reason why I'm using red is because Dodge in 1967 in their cars with a small block, 273 to be specific in 67, it would be a red engine. So I have a very close red, and that's the color it's going. We're going to do a couple little dressy up things. I got some valve covers, and it looks like I have to reseal the water pump. Probably do a front cover gasket and seal just to say we did it. I have to change the oil pan. This is a truck oil pan, and I got to knock the core plugs out of it and replace them all. It'll give me a chance to flush out the cooling system. Now there's a few open areas, like my engine lifting plate isn't sealed. I'm going to wash it, but the distributor hole is open. I'm not worried about junk getting in there because I have to pull the oil pan off. I got to flush everything out. I got to open up the cooling system, and I am going to drain everything down through the crank area, blow it all out, clean it all out, and I won't stop until I'm happy everything's out of there. One thing I'm going to have to change is I got to go back to a V-belt system. Not really thrilled about that, but it is what it is. So that means no Magnum Serpentine accessory drive for the next little while. But overall, this is going to get us where we need to go. I think I might have a couple of broken exhaust manifold bolts. Pretty typical stuff. Nothing too crazy. So yeah, I'm going to get to cleaning. And when you guys see this next time, it's going to be cleaned up, freshened, at least less oily. And we'll probably do the oil pan swap and a little bit of cleanup and painting then. Anyway, guys, thanks for tagging along in this video. I know it's a little bit extra long than what I normally do, but this is where we're at. You've seen the car it's going in. It deserves to have something at least clean, if not slightly pretty, even though it's bone stock, like 210 horsepower, 220. But that's where we're going to leave it. We'll see you guys on the next one.